So, hey everybody, this is Barry Kleiman on the Playground Principles podcast, and I'm sitting here with a friend who I feel like I've known for, I don't know, a long time, and I've only known him maybe 10 years, Jay Samit. Jay, obviously, as you know, I appreciate you coming on. We got connected, well, through your cousin and had breakfast, and then the connections have just gone on crazily, and it's ironic because I'm a basketball guy. You're not. I joke with people, my friend Jay's a waste of 6'5" in that regard. But but we both grew up in Philadelphia row houses,
Yeah.
right? And there's a connection there, but I can't draw for crap. I play music. Jay was CEO of Sony Entertainment, but doesn't play music, but appreciates music. I sat with Jay back in January, right before the Playground Principles came. I decided to write it, and he said, Barry, I don't think anybody's going to read it, but there's something whimsical about the twist you put on it, or something like that." So when he agreed to come on and chat with me about it, I was really very honored, and he even read the book, which I was honored. So thank you for doing this. This is
Yeah, no problem.
you for you, not me. So, tell me whatever you want to tell me about yourself. Oh, by the way, one more thing. Attribution is a playground principle. When I finished writing the book, I said, "Well, what the hell am I going to use as a cover?" True story. And I'm sitting in my living room and I'm ruminating. And up on my wall, there's this magnificent painting, a print of something called Chucks. And it was painted by the guy who's on the screen. And it wasn't a basketball iteration. It was Jay used to wear turquoise Chucks, if I'm not mistaken, and he drew a picture of them hanging over a telephone wire. That was my cover. I called and asked permission, and here we are. So talk to me, Jay. I'm done.
Yeah, we're brothers from different mothers. You want to help people. You found your avenue to take what you've learned and help other people shorten their journey to success. And that's what I've spent the past 20 years doing. If you would have told me as a kid in Philadelphia that dozens of my friends would become self-made billionaires, I didn't even know what a millionaire was. I didn't understand anything. But coming from tech and building things that are used by billions of people, I didn't understand that insatiable greed or thirst that some people have just to have more. When I had enough for me and mine, my focus went, how can I shorten other people's journey? What have I learned that can help people? So, first thing I did is I started teaching how to build a high-tech startup at the largest engineering university in the country. In my best semester, I had students do $100 million.
Hmm.
Um, so it can be taught. And that was real money, not fake money. And they all drop out of school, but I explained to the dean, I said, yeah, but they will endow your campus. Don't worry about losing the tuition. Um, and then I decided to write a book, Disrupt You, that took a life of its own. It's in over a dozen languages around the world. But the most rewarding aspect that I didn't expect in writing a book was I've heard from people in 140 countries about how it's impacted them. And I don't say that as a humble brag. I say it like I can walk down the street, no one knows who I am. I'm not somebody important. But when people were looking for help, they found a tool that helped them and they share their stories. And it can make my most miserable day shine because I read these heartfelt stories. Um, Somebody went from suicide to success. I mean, amazing things. A dentist in Pakistan, people like lives that the book wasn't written for. And there's nothing that I write in any of my books that isn't just common sense.
Of course.
It's just most of us are taught and raised not to be successful. And I don't mean financial, I mean success, period. Because your parents and teachers want to prevent you from having pain, from failing. And you cannot succeed without failing. Failing, you learn what doesn't work. It makes you better. I'm sure there's a million sports metaphors, which
About to say, I mean,
you
but
won't hear
this
from
is,
me.
yep. No, they're,
Um,
but they are. You're right. So keep going.
but I'd still be the guy doing the granny style free throw because I'm a data guy and it had a higher success rate, but guys with testosterone thought it didn't look macho.
I
So
need a
there's
video of
my
that.
sports parallel. So basically, if you can explain to people the difference between failing and failure, failing is learning what doesn't work. It took Edison famously 1,000 times to get a light bulb, our symbol for idea. Failure is throwing in the towel and saying, I give up.
Right.
And the second you do that, you're guaranteed not going to succeed.
You bet.
You never know how close you are to success until you make that last hurdle. And so in the TikTok era where all you see are people projecting a false sense of success, and your news clips only show athletes' greatest moments, they're not showing the 30 years of struggle that led to that moment, right? I'm not a sports guy, but I was expecting to watch something else. I just turned in for the World Series, first time I ever watched anything, at the ninth inning, expecting the thing to end.
You did good.
And it was the greatest hour of sports I've ever seen. The pressure on that young pitcher's face of my whole life comes down to disappointing everyone, like amazing composure and pulling it off. So to go from one slight tweak of your body, you're a zero, to instantly a hero. Many comics have talked about the same thing. The guy who wins the race at the Olympics by 1/100th of a second is on Wheaties, and the other guy goes back to, working at 7-Eleven. So yeah, I don't get that winner plays all type sports thing. There are no losers if you're pursuing something that isn't a zero-sum game. And business isn't about how do I get his money to be my money. Entrepreneurs actually create money from scratch. It doesn't exist in the universe.
Right.
If you bought 10% of my new company, Barry, for $1,000, I now have a company worth 10,000. The other 9,000 didn't exist before.
Right.
But it can be spent, it can be borrowed against, and that's how billion-dollar empires are made.
Yep.
So teaching people how to do that turned out to be easy. And most of the world thirsts for what we take for granted in Silicon Valley and the US, that entrepreneurial spirit.
Explain it one level deeper. They thirst for the entrepreneurial spirit, or explain that to me one level
They
deeper.
want a better life, but they don't in I'm going to mess up and you can fill in the sports metaphors.
No, let's
Folks,
go ahead. It doesn't matter.
folks, if you're a sports person, if you laid $1 million in front of me and said, name 10 football players in the history of football that have never been in a feature film, I could not take that bet. Okay, so that's my knowledge of sports. But I do know that no one ever ran a mile, a 2-minute mile, 3-minute, whatever the thing was. They thought it was biologically impossible. After somebody ran it, within the next 18 months, runners all over the world did it.
It's true.
Nobody in the Dominican Republic thought about, let me create a Facebook or a Google, but one guy makes it out of poverty throwing a baseball. Every kid picks up a baseball. Every kid in a favela in Brazil is kicking a soccer ball. Inner city kids saw boxing or sports as a ticket out once you see someone do it. So in our country, we have a rich history of entrepreneurs, many of whom, by the way, are immigrants, because that's the perfect thing. That's a person willing to give up whatever they have to try something better, or the hope for something better. So showing the lessons that we learn here where they can't find those lessons in other countries turned to be the surprise of writing my book. That, it's in Lithuanian, it's in Thai, it's in Chinese, it's in 2 different versions of Chinese. It fascinates me. Everybody would like their kids to have a better life than they have. We're all the same. But most teachers became teachers because they're risk averse. Right? It's a secure job. It's a government. Not teachers. It's a noble job. but they're not the ones that are going to tell you, don't take the job that's offered by the big company. And by the way, the big company isn't going to survive. The
Right.
original Fortune 500 companies, less than 10% are still around.
It's true.
So it's not that security robs ambition, it's the illusion of security that robs ambition for people. And so if I can break that illusion, and Barry and I are old, find people our
Speak
age
for
or old.
yourself. I'm really old.
Okay. Find old people. Go visit your grandparents, go to a senior center, go to an old age home and ask people one question. What do you regret most in your life?
Sure.
And you'll never hear somebody say something they failed at. Inevitably, they'll say something they failed to try. If only I had pursued being a musician, if only I had shown people my art, if only I had written that book, if only I had asked that cute girl out, whatever it was. I didn't want to grow up a life of regrets. I didn't listen to my parental advice, and they didn't talk to me for a long period of time because of that. They wanted me to take that safe route.
Yep.
And it's the journey, folks. It's not the destination. We're all not going to be here. So why not live 1,000 adventures? Why not? And whatever you've done in your first career, my next book is called The Second Act. You can have a second act. Athletes work their butts off from 10, 11 years old, depending on the sport, all the way till their bodies can't take it.
Yep.
But they still have another 10, 20, 30, 40 years that they can have a second act and take what they've learned about tenacity, about giving your all, about teamwork, about all the things that it takes to accomplish. And it may not be that your purpose is financial, and those are the best purposes. We've all seen some injustice in our life, some problem. One of my best friends in life, when she was a kid, was playing on the swings, and the swing knocked out all her teeth. And the dentist figuratively and literally brought her smile back.
Mm.
And at that moment, at 10 years old, she knew she wanted to be a dentist, a dental surgeon, so she could do that for people. And she grew up to be what she wanted.
Right.
Nobody ever knocked my teeth out. I never knew what that thing was. I'm still struggling to figure out what that one thing is. But along the way, I've worn so many hats, my career looks impossible. But I follow a bright idea, and I had great advice at the beginning of life. Either be the best in the world at what you do or the only one doing it.
Yep.
Because if you're the only one doing it, by definition, you're the best. So when you apply for a job, that job already existed, means other people have held it, which means everybody has more experience. They shouldn't hire you. And in a world where AI is taking away entry-level jobs, and those are all automated, you now have the glass floor. We've heard about the glass ceiling blocking women from attaining success in a sexist world. There's now the glass floor where people can't even get into the world because there's no entry jobs. So why not go do something that hasn't been done before? Look at new technologies that others invented and apply them to solving a problem or an injustice that you see. Or start a foundation or problem. In The Second Act Advantage, which comes out in May 26th, I tell the story, a true story. A guy sitting at the doctor's office, as old people do, he's a retired engineer, and he reads that in Africa, when the rainy season comes, a canyon floods and people on one side can't get to the other side for 3-4 months, which means kids can't go to school, can't go to doctors, life sucks. And he goes, it would be so easy to build a footbridge, not for cars, for people. Think Indiana Jones style bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And so he goes and does it, starts a foundation, and he's built 600 bridges connecting 10 million people across the third world and changing the trajectory of their lives. You know, you mentor one kid in sports, he doesn't go pro, your time wasn't wasted. You got that child to believe in themselves and send them on a path of great success. So mentorship is the greatest gift you can give to people.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I want actually, it's a good segue for me, and I agree with you 100%. And I mean, we've talked quite a bit about whatever your MO, my MO. I've learned certainly so much from you. Maybe you learned a shtickle from me, whatever. But mentorship, I know matters, right? I know that. Um, you've mentored me, whether you know it or not. I hope you.
Mother Teresa ended up going to India and spending her whole life because she happened to sit on a park bench or on a bus bench one day and found a mentor in a priest, and it was an epiphany.
And there we have Mother Teresa, the birth of Mother Teresa. So you've sat in very high perches of large companies. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had hundreds of thousands of employees. Yes.
Sony Entertainment.
Uh, Deloitte, we had did 44 billion a year. Sony corporate wasn't just entertainment.
Okay. Sony.
Um, Universal, EMI, yeah.
Okay.
Um,
So
I hate
amazing.
large companies.
So with this mentorship in mind, um, and with this entrepreneurial spirit in mind, which I agree 100%, and I keep forgetting how the footprint that Disrupt You has had, and it has to be so heartwarming. Because when I get notes about my piddly little book, it is heartwarming. So yours more. So how do you manage message scads of employees in Sony or Deloitte or wherever to keep that fire burning, but still be here and be a highly productive member of Team Sony, Team J, Team Deloitte, whatever? Because there's a couple different. I mean,
I'd
and
love to know. That's not what I do. Um, what you do is you find a large company, or they find me,
sure,
that has a problem, has lost their way, and they've tried everything else. Nobody comes to Jay when they're having their best year.
right.
Um, I'm your
You're
Hail
a
Mary
plumber.
pass. There's a sports metaphor. So
Say it again. I interrupted you. Say it.
I'm the Hail Mary pass.
Gotcha. Okay.
So put it in perspective, the music industry was doing just fine without Jay, from first records of Enrico Caruso through the Beatles to around the turn of the century when Napster came along and everybody could steal everything, and they were laying off thousands and thousands of people and were on the verge of going out of business. I'm a digital guy. I see a different future of how you can monetize and change that. I would have wasted my breath trying to tell people that were very successful and got to a corner office doing X, Y, and Z that the world that got them where they are doesn't exist anymore,
Mm,
and the skills that they have are invalidated. I mean, one of the first people came in wanted to tell me why I had to do this and that for radio play, the old payola type
yes,
guys
yes,
that
yes.
work the radio stations. And I go, I don't care if my artists are on the radio. I really don't. And so that sent them out of their way from wasting my time. And if no one's buying stuff, getting free promotion doesn't solve a problem. What I am good at is holding up a candle if there's a different way, attracting people that see the same way, and being their rabbi inside of the organization, being their coach, and saying, join this team. Here's what we're going to accomplish. And other people will either see the light at some point and then take credit for it, whether they participate or not, don't care. But at least the company's still going and growing. And I've done this time and time again in many, many industries. And what I learned from age that I didn't anticipate is big ideas attract big minds. And so every one of my wacky ideas get people that never had achieved anything you've never heard of, don't have any net worth, And years later, these are Mark Cuban came out of that process. The CEO and chairman of Google came out of one of my things. I mean, the people that come across your transom is humbling and amazing because they're amazing people that wanted to do amazing things. So the idea is what attracts them. And when you do something that hasn't been done before, here's the good news. You don't know whether you're doing it right or wrong, but there's nobody else that can tell you. So doing it is right. And when it doesn't work, that's also right. You then steer it a different way. So my famous example in Disrupt You was, to those younger than us, there was a world of dating before swiping. And in the early days, I'm not talking physical dating because that disappeared last century, but there was computer dating, online dating, and you'd see a picture of the person, you'd read their thing, and you'd, email and, whatever. And three guys came up with the idea of why not let people, now that there's video on the camera phones, why not let people upload a video about themselves and you see their personality, hear their voice. It was called Tune In Hookup. And they built a perfect site. They did everything right. And there was one tragic flaw. The first video was a guy standing in front of the elephant at the zoo because nothing turns women on more than that. So the problem was nobody wanted to date these losers. But they looked at the data of what they built, and there was something that they hadn't anticipated. Nobody wants to date these people, but everybody wants to show their friends how bad the dating pool is and share the videos. So they changed the name of the site to YouTube and sold it for $2 billion without a penny in revenue. Twitter was a music site. Lots of things pivot and change.
Sure.
But you don't get to that insight unless you go deep enough into the jungle where the common sense ideas cease to be, because you're going somewhere that nobody ever explored. And this country was built by explorers, people that left somewhere else in the hopes of something better and built a like-minded environment where people thrive. 1 out of 3 Fortune 500 companies was founded by an immigrant or the first generation child of an immigrant.
Yeah.
That's the spirit that we need to have. And now that we're living longer, retirement isn't get the gold watch and die 4 years later, though you could have a podcast of what it is for professional athletes. That doesn't look good. Many of those sports translate to a shorter life. But for everybody else, you have decades to really make your mark. And in the era of AI, here's what people don't realize. What you create will be absorbed by AI so that others can learn from you long after you're gone. And I don't mean the literal, here's a digital version to talk to. I mean, we know what Plato taught Socrates and Socrates taught Aristotle. But there's a whole bunch of other things we don't know. We don't know anything that was in the Library of Alexandria. We don't know many lessons that each of us have learned, or little businesses or little things in different fields in different ways. I mean, now you can have an impact on the knowledge that guides mankind in perpetuity.
It's all true. I mean, I want to rewind to something and then jump forward
Okay.
into AI. But I want to get there because I had an interesting AI experience this morning as it related to the book I wrote. But I couldn't wait. I just got it. I said to my wife, I can't wait to tell Jay about this because it's astounding. But for you, it'll be a piece of cake. But so I asked you about how you in the perch where you sat, you still, I think you're a little too humble, but you did find a way to get the message of possibility across to people to stay with you because not everybody abandoned ship
Oh
when
yeah,
Jay Samit came up.
I think I don't know your full resume. Have you worked at a giant corporation?
No, well,
Okay,
yes, but I was a headhunter, so I worked with thousands of them.
irrelevant, irrelevant. Less than 1% of employees make any difference in the financial results of a corporation.
Of course,
Okay. And that's not putting them down. They're just in roles, you know,
that's how it is.
the trucks get delivered on time, this or that. If they mess up their job, they can destroy the thing, but they're not revenue creation. So the only things you have to change or focus on is that small piece. You're not changing HR, you're not changing accounting, you're not changing. There's a different type of turnaround people that come in and go, I can slash and burn costs and make the next year look great. But the first thing they cut is R&D and development and new
Right.
creative.
Right.
So after 2 years, it goes out of business because there's no new products. So it's a false statement that somebody like me comes in to soup to nuts, change the thing. I'm the outlier, and most people get out of my way because they figure I'm a rocket. I shoot up high and I'll burn up and disintegrate in the atmosphere real quick. What I have to do is get who's ever above me, the board,
Sure.
to buy into whatever insanity I'm selling. And it took me 20 years of dealing with, if you name a Fortune 500 company, I've had most of them as clients. What took me 20 years is I'd go in to the CEO of Pepsi, not to out, he's retired, the one I'm referring to, didn't get what I was saying. Okay.
This is where I'm going with this, so keep talking.
And I left going, he made it to where he wanted to go. He achieved what he wanted. It's not his job to get what I'm saying. It's my job to communicate in a way that people stuck in the past can see the future on their terms. And once I change the onus that it's my problem, not his, I went to Coke and convinced them instantly and did one of the biggest deals ever done with Coke. And everything ever since. And so I people say, how do I predict the future? I don't. I hang out with people that are coding it.
Yeah.
So I can look at what's coming out the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 years across science, across biology, across everything. But I don't look at it from scientists aren't figuring out how to fold proteins, which won the Nobel Prize, to monetize. They're not like, oh my God,
Right.
we could have the origami of protein business. No, they're discovering things. They're wired different. I'm wired. Wow, somebody spent their whole life to invent this thing. It could solve a problem over here and make a fortune. I'll connect those dots. So I'm not an engineer. I've never written a line of code. True story. During COVID or just before COVID, I get a call from the number 3 at Google, somebody I don't know. They want to hire me as on a project. And I'm like, I'm touched, I'm flattered, you're amazing.
Jay, hold on one sec. Your audio just went a little wonky. Something just happened. All of a sudden you got echoey.
The back?
It's a little echoey all of a sudden. Try it again.
How's it now?
It's a little better. Keep going.
Okay. So I said, you have 16,000 of the world's greatest engineers, PhDs, whatever. What do I possibly know or have any skill set that you don't already have buildings full of? They go, we don't know how to bring a physical product to market on time. And they brought me in, amazing technology that they wanted to do, signed a whole bunch of stuff that I can't talk about. But their problem was not that they didn't have the thing or have the people. Their culture is you get rewarded for creating amazing things,
right?
But no sale of a widget, no sale of a product is going to move the financial needle compared to the search engine's revenues. So you're not going to get promoted because you made them another 20 million or 100 million. You're going to get promoted because you made something cool. So there's no incentive for anybody to, hey, stuff's got to be in the warehouses by August to make the shelves by October to be sold for Christmas.
Right.
So it's a cultural alignment.
Um, you still, um, I mean, anybody, I'm fortunate I've gotten to have a bunch of conversations with you over time. And your passion for and understanding of your vision is palpable. When you walk in to convince a boardroom to come play with Jay, you have to have some communication chops, right? Because I'm not going to just get your vision right away. So I still,
So, so,
you with me?
so, God, I wish I knew a sports metaphor.
Well, don't worry about it. I'll figure
Um,
that part out later. Come on. Just tell me what you want to say.
I'm not going into a boardroom that scored the score 73-2 in the first half of the game, and I'm speaking them at halftime, and they're
Right.
the 70. Okay.
Yep.
I'm going into a boardroom that already has a problem. As much as I'd love to say that my elocution and years of pitching and amazing vocal tones have an impact, the real truth is in the beginning, it took a ton of effort. Now there's a name and a track record, and I'm not selling. When I'm in that meeting, they're selling me, please take our lost cause. All right.
Mhm.
And the more I got less motivated by wanting to do that again, the more ridiculous, you know, you know, what would the worst team in a league that never had a pennant and just got bought by, Elon Musk pay to get, the world's best pitcher to join
Right.
their team?
Sure.
That's what it really comes down to. So it's a different dynamic than your imagination.
I actually, I completely disagree because you said so, and it's cool. It's kind of fun. Um, your chops evolved over time, but you still have an ability to paint a picture that somebody could see to buy. You do.
Yeah, well, I
Sorry, you
try
do.
to talk in a language that they understand.
There you go. Okay.
I try to use examples from their life or their past.
Okay.
Analogy and storytelling is the key to communication.
Thank you.
People absorb things emotionally, not intellectually. So, when I was at Sony, I lost this argument with the executive in charge of electronics at the time. We were going up against the iPod that had just come out from Steve at
Did that ever
Apple.
get invented, that thing?
What?
I was
And,
joking.
and, and the iPod's ads are, you can look them up probably on YouTube, said nothing about what it was. It was black silhouettes of people dancing on bright neon colors with just white earbud going. Now, there weren't earbuds back then, but headphones going into a white thing that they're holding and cool music, right? That was it. The we, the Sony Walkman equivalent, the digital Walkman, had a longer battery life,
Yep.
could hold much more music, and they ran an ad that could have run in the 1950s for a car. It's this many battery, this much horsepower, da 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 da. And guess what? We lost. The ad, just for you, because you're a music nut, that I tried to talk them into, which I thought was cool, is we couldn't afford a major star for the ad campaign. It's a stadium after a concert. And I know I could go in after any concert and pay some guys off and just shoot on it. There's guys, roadies breaking down the stage, okay? And they've got their Walkman that you see, and there's other roadies that have white headphones. And you see after a while, the guys that don't have the white headphones are still rocking and doing their job. And the other ones, the batteries died out and they're not doing it. And I wanted to hire the woman that sings the second half of the Jackson Brown song. Um, what's called the loadout, and the
Yeah, yeah,
second
yeah.
half is play
Stay just
a
a little
little
bit longer.
longer, you
Yeah,
know?
stay just a little bit longer.
Yeah. Sony Walkman, stay just a little longer. That to me was a campaign that explained the
Sure.
difference between them without saying stuff. I still don't know what a horsepower is on a car. I still don't believe anybody buys a car because of horses. I think that's horseshit. And I also went to one of the big three 10 years ago explaining why they have to start making electric self-driving cars. And I was from Mars,
Yeah.
you know. And I wrote in my book, Disrupt You is now 10 years old,
Wow.
that if Tesla ever decided to make a lower cost vehicle, they'd win.
What just happened? Jay, I just lost you. Wow, we just lost Jay.